Welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education. We are doing a birth story today, which we haven't done in a while, talking to Leslie Hughes about her experience with her birth and then also postpartum. I feel like since going through postpartum, I'm like way more passionate about it because I understand how lonely it can feel or how hard it gets, but like there's nothing anyone can say or do to prepare you for it. I feel like you just need to have unlimited support, and we don't always do the best at supporting mamas in the postpartum period as a society. So I really empathize with people going through it. I feel like there were a lot of days where I didn't even know how to ask for help or like what I necessarily needed. But it was just really, really hard. So we talk about postpartum, and it's a great conversation. I love chatting with her and hearing her experience. We love hearing different people's experience on here because there are no births that are alike, no postpartum experiences that are alike. Everyone has their own unique journey into motherhood. So I really enjoy my conversation with Leslie. Before we dive into the interview, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, rate and review. Make sure that you're following us on Instagram and joining the Miraculous Mamas Facebook group, where you're just going to find a lot of support no matter where you're at in this journey. And whatever questions you have, you don't have to feel scared to ask in there. The group is so supportive. And everybody has different parenting styles and techniques and tips. So it's nice to kind of get other people's, maybe what they're doing. I know a lot of times we get unsolicited advice, but if you ever want advice, that is the place to go. All right, we are going to dive into this interview. All right, everyone, I have Leslie Hughes here, and I'm so excited to be talking with her. We've kind of become Instagram friends. She's a new mom. She was part of the Bachelor Nation, and I followed along in her pregnancy and was so excited when she welcomed her daughter, Violet, into the world. And she is so freaking cute. Oh my gosh. The pictures that you post of her are just like explosions of my ovaries wanting another baby already. But I mean, I'm so excited just to hear how your pregnancy was and your birth and what made you choose the birthing options that you chose. So thank you so much for coming on and being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. And just so you guys know, she has baby Violet here with her. She's bouncing back and forth with her. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. They're so fun at this age.
Oh, yes. Just 8. So now she's in a food coma wrapped against me. Yeah. Oh. She doesn't really want to do naps unless they're on my chest at this age. It's really... So I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right. But
perfect. I'll figure out the transition from here.
Yes. I mean, kids are all different and they change. And who knows? There's still babies that like to be carried way later too. So,
yeah,
I feel like I never got the baby carrier thing down with Jovi. And then I tried when she was like 3 months and she was like, get off of me. So even now, she doesn't love it. I wore her to go grocery shopping the other day. So now she like faces out so she can see everything. But if we're not like actively doing something, she's like, okay, put me down. Like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see what she does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Great. So we'll just kind of dive right into it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and then how your pregnancy was.
Well, I'm currently living in Florida, Tampa, Florida. But I was in California for the last 14 years and was working on some TV shows and commercials and all that. So, I had a quarantine baby, me and my guy. Mm-hmm. During quarantine in the beginning, we're like, wait for all these babies to be born. And then, we jinxed ourselves. So that was a big transition. But pretty much been doing, entertainment and then social media, and used to deal with poker. So pretty much everything and anything I pretty much do or did. Now it's kind of like, okay, now what do I do? With the baby. Mm-hmm. So big transition now, but, overall, I think my pregnancy was good experience. I was never sick, thank goodness. And I didn't really have like heartburn, and I didn't have like the norm, but I did have really bad pelvic pain, which I feel like no one really talked about, and didn't really know that was a thing until I started finding more pregnant moms on Instagram and moms that I would follow. And so that was interesting until I started getting like the bands, and then I found Belly Bandit, and they made like I call it the vagina sling. Mm-hmm. It's called the V sling. And then when I started wearing that, I was like, how come I didn't know about this for months? Because I was just like, the first time I flew, I was 12 weeks pregnant. And when I got off the airplane, I thought my vagina was broken, because I was like, what is wrong? And they're like, oh, you have pelvic pain. I was like, what is that? I didn't know it was a thing. So, other than that, overall, it was kind of good pregnancy. I had, towards the end, I think it was 35 weeks or 36 weeks, I got a thing called pup rash, which I didn't know that was a thing either. And apparently I don't know how many women pregnancy from 35 and on can get it. And so it was a rash that was basically started on my stomach and went all the way around to my back, but it was looked like shingles. Mm-hmm. So it was brutal. And that lasted for, I think like 2 months or 2 weeks. And then they said that like, once you give birth, it would disappear, but mine disappeared before. So I'm grateful for that. Mm-hmm. But overall it was still good. Like I was still working out. I was working. So that was the hardest for me, because I was working on the Rookie. And so it was like 10 to 12 hour days. And then with COVID, we had to wear masks and shields, and then just, not be close to anybody, couldn't touch anybody. And then once we actually started rolling on cameras, then we could take off our gear. So that was a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like in the beginning of pregnancy, I feel like I was really alone, because it didn't really know. Like, we didn't tell people until I was, I think, 5 months pregnant. I don't remember, except for like the ones I reached out to on Instagram. Mm-hmm. But it was definitely a lonely period, which now everyone I've talked to has had like the same experience of like, you definitely feel like lonely at times. So that was definitely like interesting, because I'm a open book and like a go-getter. And so it was just different for me to be in that state of mind. So... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the pandemic too made things very different. Maybe you weren't able, like, doing the normal things that you would be doing that bring some normalcy during pregnancy.
Yeah. And I wish I wasn't pregnant during the pandemic, because I definitely feel like we missed out. Were you pregnant during the pandemic?
Yeah.
Or was you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just missed out on a lot of things that like we normally would do. Mm-hmm. Showing up and like going to brunch or friends or just having mommy dates, like all that stuff.
I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I remember like I went through that phase too. Like once my belly like really popped, I'm like, oh, I want to go show off my bump. I want to go to brunch, or I want to see my friends. Yeah. And I didn't.
I know. Yeah, definitely didn't. I'm like, look, I have all these like cute maternity clothes, but like there's no point wearing them really. I wore them for Instagram.
Right. Exactly. All right. We are going to pause this interview so I can talk to you about a supplement that I have been taking every single day for about 1.5 years now, and that is collagen. And by now you've all heard about collagen, but I have specifically been taking the Ancient Nutrition collagen, and a lot of their other supplements. I absolutely love them. You may recognize Dr. Axe. He came on the podcast before. It's his supplement line, and that's how I heard about him. I started taking these supplements, and I'm like, I have to get him on the show because they are such an amazing company. Their best-selling multi-collagen protein powder has 5 different types of collagen in it. The majority of the ones you see on the market have 1. And it is the first and only collagen on the market with clinically proven, studied ingredients proven to help reduce joint discomfort as early as day 1, to improve fine lines and wrinkles after 4 weeks, and to transform your overall skin tone after 8 weeks. I was actually just telling my sister-in-law that I feel like it has improved my skin, my fine lines and wrinkles, because they used to be worse. And I'm getting older and I feel like it's not really getting worse, which is amazing because I've tried so many different skincare stuff, but beauty comes from the inside out. I also used the collagen throughout my entire pregnancy and didn't have any stretch marks. I didn't have any tearing. And some of that can be genetic, but a lot of it also is our nutrients and diet as well. I always put it in my morning coffee or tea just to kind of get in right away, get some protein in, some collagen in right away in the morning. And it is so good. Right now, Ancient Nutrition is offering 20% off your first order when you go to ancientnutrition.com and enter the promo code MAMAS at checkout. That's ancientnutrition.com. Enter promo code MAMAS for 20% off your first order. That's ancientnutrition.com. Enter promo code MAMAS at the checkout. So when it came to like trying to figure out what, like once you became pregnant, deciding what kind of care you wanted, how did you go about figuring out which provider that you wanted to choose or what route that you wanted to go?
Well, I'm a health nut and work out and all that stuff a lot, or used to, haven't been back yet. But hospitals before even COVID always freaked me out. And I never honestly thought I was going to have kids. My guy is older. He's got 3 older kids. His youngest was 22. So didn't really think I was having them. So I was okay with it. But never liked hospitals anyways. And I don't really like doctors just because they usually just prescribe medicine and then move on. If something else has happened, here's more medicine. So I've never been a big fan. So going into that, I knew I wanted midwife and or a doula. And then following you, kind of learn more about doulas. And then one of my really good friends, she's a doula. And I didn't really know a lot about midwives just from what I've heard from people on Instagram or just doing my research. And then finding the birth centers. So I didn't know anything about birth centers. And my guy, since he is older, he's very traditional. You go to the hospital and if something goes wrong, you have the hospital. I'm but no, they know what they're doing too. So I originally went to the midwives of UCLA because it was part of a hospital. But knowing when I first went to them, it was just the first one that my normal doctor had just transferred me to, because I didn't really know what to do. I've never been pregnant and didn't know what the steps were, which I wish there was kind of a guide into that too, because it really isn't. It's just okay, here you go. And then when I started researching more of birth centers, I knew I wanted to switch out of that practice and go to an actual center. And I loved it. The first one I went into, I was just oh my gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be. I just felt like it was more homey. They had diffusers everywhere. It was just more, I call spa-like. It felt like when I walked in, and just calming. And I loved the women that I first met when I was going to originally have my baby in California. And then, so I had all that. And then I ended up moving to Florida when I was 30. I don't know how many weeks I was, but found a birth center out here through my mom. My mom was going, we were doing FaceTime, same thing. And I was referred to them to one of my friends out here, and instantly, even through FaceTime, I knew those were my women. I needed to be with them. Cause there was just no pushing, no oh, you need to do it this way. You need to do it that way. It's kind of, I don't know. I just learned so much through them. And I never had a plan. Everyone's what was your birth plan? And I was I don't want a birth plan, because I was petrified that if it didn't go the way I had it planned, that I would be so disappointed. And so I didn't have a plan. I knew I wanted to be in the water, and that I wanted delayed cord clamping. And that was about it.
How did you, though, get your guys' support? Because that's a struggle that a lot of people have, is trying to, I guess, figure that out. That's something that me and my husband went through, especially like with COVID. I mean, because I was pregnant right when the pandemic hit. So for a while, they weren't even letting partners in the hospitals. There was so much going on. And I'm like, well, do we do a home birth then? Because I'm not birthing without you, and trying to figure out these different options. And at first he wasn't on board with the home birth. The only reason he was if he wasn't going to be allowed at the hospital. He was like, okay, then we can birth at home. And we ended up still going with the midwife group in a hospital. But I know that it can be so hard to like get your partners like okay with what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And he was definitely super cautious and like worried, I think, very worried. I wouldn't say a little, very worried, because he was just worried about like the health of Violet and the health of me, and like, what if something goes wrong? And it wasn't until we had birth classes at the birth center here in Florida with our midwives that he actually got to see like they're super cautious, and probably even more so cautious than the hospitals. Like, if anything is wrong or anything's not going right, like they will have the ambulance ready and we're going to the hospital. And it was more than just a tub birth, because all he thought was like, oh, we're going to be in a tub. It's more than that. It's having the option of that. And then like, you get to do whatever you want. Like, I always thought in my brain, like hospitals, you just be strapped down to a bed. And I was just like, that sounds cruel and sounds just horrible. And like, even not being able to eat, like the midwives are like, no, you bring snacks, you eat, you drink, you do whatever you need to do to have that energy. So once he actually went through the birth class, he was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like, it's just so much more than what anybody would ever think. Mm-hmm. And so it really put his mind at ease and put my mind at ease. And it was just like, at that point, he was full on board and just didn't want it at the hospital at that point then, because it's like, especially with COVID, there were just like so many sick people. And so it was cool to see his transition and being like, wow, I just learned so much that I never would have known if it wasn't for you. Even my mom too, because she is only known birth or hospitals. And so even when she went to the birth center, she's like, I don't know about this. It's just like a building. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's okay. Just like going to your doctor. Yeah. Until she like started going to appointments with me, and she went to one of the birth classes with me as well. She was just like, okay, just more informed than what we're allowed to see in the norm. So
yeah, that's awesome. I feel like when you actually fully educate yourself on that stuff, then you see it, you come around to it. There's just so many misconceptions and assumptions, and a lot of people think, oh, you're going at a birth center, oh, it's basically just this unassisted free birth, whatever. And it's like, no, they're highly trained. They know what they're doing. They're not going to put my life at risk.
No, I think that definitely more so safety-wise there than I probably would at the hospital. But I mean, never been at the hospital, so I don't know. But it was nice too, because I knew like at the hospital during this time, like you were only allowed to have your partner. Like my doula was able to come to the hospitals out here in Florida, but I don't really know what they were in California. And then I was also allowed to have my mom. Oh, wow. So if hospital, she would have never been able to be in there.
Right.
And so that was just an awesome experience for her just to be there, and just like, we were just very homey. Like I had David, I had my mom, and I had my doula, which is one of my really great friends. Mm-hmm. So
that's amazing. All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about BetterHelp. You guys know I'm a big advocate for taking charge of your mental health, for getting outside counseling. I know it's great to have family and friends, but it's also really important to talk to somebody who's not emotionally attached to your specific situation. And I feel like in motherhood, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of opinions, a lot of outside noise. So being able to talk to a counselor, a licensed professional, at least for me, is so valuable and so important, which is why I love BetterHelp. They have licensed professional counselors who specialize in anger, depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma. grief, just so many different topics. And everything you share is always confidential. And the other thing I like about them is that I don't have to leave my house. I've mentioned before, I've gone to counseling several times, and it's always so awkward going and sitting in an office, like waiting for them to come get you. And you're in there with other people. And it's just really nice to be able to do it from the comfort of my home and to do it in a way that I feel comfortable. I can FaceTime, text, email, not FaceTime, like set up a video chat, depending on whatever I'm feeling, and to set that up and how I feel comfortable. And so many people are using BetterHelp because they're amazing that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And I want you guys to start living a happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/mamas. And you can join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. Okay, so how did you know, what were your first signs of labor, and how far along were you?
So I was 39 weeks and leading up to 48 hours before I gave birth. I had ultrasounds, and they were running like the test to see like how her heart rate was doing. And they didn't really like my midwife. She didn't like the way that Violet's heart rate was going when she would move. Like, she wanted her heart rate to be up higher. So they ordered me to do a stress test on the baby. So we went to an ultrasound place and did a stress test on the baby. And she had a score an 8 out of 8, which was like her heart rate was good, her movement was good, her tone was good. And then something else was good. Well, she only scored a 4 out of 4. She wasn't moving when they did the ultrasound, and then therefore her tone wasn't doing anything. But I was like, she was moving the whole way up. She was moving
right,
when
of
we
course.
were, yeah. I was like, she moves all the time. And so because of that, the next day, my midwives ordered me to go to the hospital to do another stress test. And they were like, pre-warning, if they don't like, what she scores, they're going to ask to be induced. And I was like, hell no. Like, I knew I definitely didn't want to be induced, because I know, like, you're just forcing your body to do what it doesn't want to do. So I was like, oh, and this is like at 9:00 at night, 48 hours or 24 hours prior to her birth. I was like, okay. So we go there, we do the test and the whole thing. They're like, no, everything looks normal. Everything looks great, but we would like you to get induced. I'm like, so everything looks great, but you want me to get induced still? That makes no sense. And they're like, well, we can't force you if you want. I'm like, no. So we had to sign like our waiver, like, okay, we're being released out of our own will.
Did they give a reason why they wanted to induce you?
Because I'm 39 weeks. Like, okay. That was their reasoning.
Got it.
And I'm like, to me, that makes no sense though. Like, if everything is fine and she's fine, like, why put my body through that just because? Mm-hmm. And it was with a midwives group within the hospital as well, which I liked. I didn't know they had it over here in Tampa. But at that point too, they were like, okay, we'll release you, but we would like you to come back tomorrow or go to another ultrasound place just to make sure. And so at this point, David's like, okay, well, this has been the second one, third time around. If it's the same, like, I think we should get induced. I was like, oh, dreading. So at this point, like, I honestly was praying so hard, and I was just like, just please let us be the birth center. Like, this is all I've asked. Oh, and then we get home, and at 12:30 at night, then my contractions started.
Awesome.
So David was like, I think you willed it upon yourself to make sure that we were not going to the hospital. So my contractions started at 12:30. They went all through the night. And then at 8:40 that morning, we called the midwives and told them how they were. My doula was staying with me at that point. So she was here and was monitoring all of them. And when we got there at 8:40 a.m., I was forced and immunodilated 100% effaced. So I was like, yeah. I was just so excited. I was like, thank you, God, we don't have to go back to the hospital. And so at that point too, since I was up for so long, they gave me something to like calm me down, which I never slept. Because when I'd have my contractions, I couldn't sleep or lay down like on my sides. Like, I needed to be up walking or like sitting. So that didn't go very well. But I guess I labored for, I don't know how many hours. So from 8:30 there until probably like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They'd come in and check on me. My mom had brought us food at some point. And it wasn't, I have a high tolerance of pain apparently. So I don't really know how to tell people. My doula thinks I'm crazy because everyone says like the ring of fire.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I never felt the ring of fire. And she was like, what? And I was like, I don't know. And I don't really know how I did my breathing because like they don't teach us that in the birth classes. But I don't know, just as long as someone was on my lower back, like hip area, like squeezing on that or rubbing on that, I was okay. And then I think at 5:30 in the evening is when they started getting the tub filled with water. And at that point they were like, okay, well, if you're ready, we can get in and we can start pushing if you want. And I was like, okay. Like, I was just in this weird trance. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, cause they were like, you can talk or you can make noise. Like I was so quiet, even my mom. And then like I said, my doula, Amelia, she was just like, I don't think I've ever seen Leslie this quiet before. And they were like, we're waiting for you to like say some F-bombs and all this stuff. And I guess I said one and it was like super quiet. They were like, you can make noise. So I don't really know if I was just like, I don't know, in this weird trance, I call it. But there's no explanation for it. So then at 5:30 got in the tub and that was amazing. I was just like, felt instant relief of just like, and that's when I started pushing. So my water broke in the tub. Apparently they could tell. I had no clue. And then David was always like behind me. I called him my boxer assistant because he was always there behind me with like Gatorade and water and coconut water and straws and stuff. But then at some point, whenever I was in the tub pushing, like I couldn't feel my contractions anymore. I don't know if it was just like too relaxing. So they had me get out of the tub and then I went on the bed and then I was on all fours at one point. And they're like, get on all fours. David had the big, what's those balls? What's the name for those balls? The big ball, not the peanut ball, but like
just like a birthing ball.
Just like a birth ball. Yeah. So he was holding the front of it for me. And so they're like, you can start pushing whenever you want. And he's like, no. There's no one back behind to catch the baby. And they're like, no, it's not gonna be like that. It's okay. She's got plenty of time. So I was on all fours for a while and then they had me go on my left side and then they had me go on my right side. And then I was on my back, which I think is interesting because I was like, I didn't want to be in the hospital because I'm like, I didn't want to be on my back to give birth, but I gave birth on my back. And everything was fine there. And I thought it was interesting. So they use olive oil, which I don't know. Okay. I didn't know that was a thing to like help her come out and help save my vagina lips and all that stuff. And I was like, didn't know what they were doing, but I'm like, okay. And then, I just remember them trying to, so the tissue inside of me was I was fully dilated, but I had like tissue that was just super tight. And so when I would push and she would try to come out, the tissue would get stuck. And so they would have to hold the tissue over in order for me to like push her out. So once her head finally came out, she was fine, but then she started turning blue and they basically had like 3 minutes, I guess, to get the rest of her out. And so at this point, my mom was freaking out. I'm like, but all I hear is like, the one midwife, because at this point I have probably 3 different midwives in there and a couple of nurses. And so I went from like one midwife that was super gentle and like, okay, we're going to take care of this. And then another one jumped in to, we got to just get her out. And so one was like holding the tissue just to help get Violet out. And I don't even know what happened. I just remember like, okay, there's 4 people or 4 hands helping get her out. And once they got her out, I mean, she was perfectly fine, but my mom, she was taking pictures and videos. And so I just remember her, I was like, is she crying? And someone's like, no, she's fine. She's back there praying or something. I don't know. Cause I didn't know what was happening down there. I'm just like pushing. I did yell at David to like grab my leg once because I was shaking so bad that I could not hold my legs anymore. I was 3 hours into pushing too at this point, which I know that you can push up to 2 to 4 hours, but shoot.
Right. You don't think that's going to be you though.
no. And I just remember even the tub, they're like, oh, we can see her. And then David would be like, I'm like, David, can you see her? And he'd be like, yeah, I see like that big of like black hair. And I'm like,
right.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm just like, I wish you guys would have told me like the truth. Like she's not coming like now. She's coming like 2 hours later.
Right. I know. It's so hard. Like you can start to see the baby, but then it's like each push, they come out a little, but when the contraction's over, they go back. And then it's just back and forth and back and forth. It can be, like you said, it could take forever. So
yeah. And I was like, okay. I'm like, David, tell me the truth. He's like, it's like this size. I remember he's like, one point, he's like, I see like this, like the size of my knuckle through your finger. And I'm like, oh man. Because at that point I was up for 48 hours. So I was completely just like,
oh my gosh,
exhausted, delirious. Like, thankfully he was holding on to the left leg. My doula was holding on my right leg. But it was nice to have, like I said, the midwife team. Like, I just feel like it's a family because they were all cheering me on. I just remember everybody like, you know, come on, you got this, push, you got it. My mom's like, you got it, babe, I see her, you know. And I feel like if I was just like me and David in a hospital, it wouldn't have been like that much support. And like, this was just like a whole family of people helping.
Mm-hmm.
So
you said earlier how you were really quiet and you're like, I'm not even sure what was going on. So something that happens to a lot of women when you labor unmedicated is your body will start to naturally develop its own ritual and rhythm that you go through. And sometimes it involves sounds and sometimes it doesn't. It's just you moving in a rhythmic pattern or a ritual that's like inside, like it can be deep within, or it can be the ritual of some sort of walk or like just something. And you kind of develop your own thing in labor and you just kind of go inside, like to yourself and go through it. I was actually listening to this audiobook called The Orgasmic Birth. And how you're describing yours, it was like a lot of the things that she was saying. But I'm like, how you're like, I didn't even feel the ring of fire. I'm like, what? How?
No.
How?
And I was like, how? Like I don't even know. Like, and I remember too, because every contraction, like they had counters because we had like our own kitchen kind of thing in there. And so I was always on the countertop with like my head on my fists basically. Mm-hmm. And then someone was rubbing my lower back. And I just always remember like, give me strength, Lord, give me strength. I always was saying that. But then like even the pushing part, like I wasn't in pain. It's so weird. I don't even know what I was feeling, honestly, until her head came out. And then I was like, oh, instant relief. But like, there's no, it's just like, how? I was like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know if I was so tired or just so, I couldn't even tell.
Your body was just made for this.
Yeah. Like I would tell people now, because no one tells you like the breastfeeding, how horrible that is for the first whatever weeks. And I was like, I would rather give birth again than breastfeed. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, okay. But in the beginning I was like, this is miserable. And I was in so much pain, more pain with that than I was at birth.
How old is Violet now?
She'll be 6 weeks this Thursday.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with the breastfeeding thing. Like, I feel like I just remember that initial first time that I turned around in the shower and the water hit my nipples and it hurt so bad. I'm like, how come nobody prepares you for this nipple pain?
Yes, that is a thing. I didn't know that was a thing until I took my shower too. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I can't be front. I got to be on the back. And I'm like, don't even get next to my boobs. Mm-mm. Like, I wish they had a little globe to put over them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, like, that's the thing. I feel like no one really talks about it or prepares you about it. Like, they're like, oh, no, it's a good thing. It's so lovely and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, my first, I don't know how long we were in, but my right one was completely raw, like completely raw. And I was like, is this? But she was lip tied too. And that was before we had it fixed. But I had absolutely no clue that's what happens in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like you said, I feel like there needs to be like, okay, you're pregnant. Now what? Now what do you do? And then like, here's the things that are normal. Here's the things that can happen. Like you can expect some people have pelvic floor pain. Some people have, just all these different things that nobody tells you. And the same for birth and the same for postpartum. Because I felt like I was not prepared for postpartum at all. I'm like, everyone was like, nobody told me how hard breastfeeding was. Like people would be like, yeah, it can be hard at first and then whatever. And I'm like, nobody was like, this is freaking hard. And like, just like really told me. And I think I told you we had a conversation, like it didn't get better for me till like 3 months.
I know, that's why you scared me. Like, no, please no.
But you said it's already better after her revision.
Yeah. So she had her lip tie fixed and then it's been a lot better. So I'm just like knocking on wood. I just needed to get better though too, because I was using like one form of nipple cream. And then I was using like these like sticky things to put on them, but I think I wasn't allowing my nipples to like dry or like have fresh air. They were just always covered. Mm-hmm. And so once I switched that routine, my sister-in-law was like, no, you just gotta leave them out. Just have them open. So I switched the nipple cream and switched to what I was doing. And then they're like, okay, no, this is how it's supposed to feel. So that got a lot better, but yeah. And then I think like the pump too, the pump, cause I was pumping in the pumps like, oh God. Yeah. So
I know so much that goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How has the rest, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how has the rest of your postpartum experience been?
I mean, I feel like overall it's been good because I was super paranoid and worried about that prior, just because of like everything that's happened. Like I've moved across the country. My man is across the country working. Like we only see each other every few weeks right now until he's done working on this show. So I was, already going through a lot mentally. I did encapsulate my placenta. So I started taking that, I don't know, it was like within the week after she was born or within the week she was born. So definitely had like the baby blues in the beginning. And then I think my biggest thing now, and my doula was here for a week after she was born too, which that was amazing because she literally made all my meals and did my laundry, did everything. Oh my God, it was amazing. So when she left, that was the hardest transition because then she left and my guy left and I was like, oh my God, I'm just here now with my baby. For me though, the hardest thing has been like mourning my old life because I'm just like, okay, she's actually mine. Like I don't give her back. Like I used to give my nephews back after I'd watched them. And trying to figure out a balance of like when can I do work or when can I take a shower? And then the transition of like, okay, none of my old clothes really fit me, but none of my maternity clothes fit me. So it's kind of, that was messing with my brain big time because I'm one that's always like worked out and never had really an issue with weight. But now I'm like, the scale is the same as what it's been when she came out.
Yeah.
And I'm like 6 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I have like a love-hate for that scale. I'm like, don't get on it. Cause it hasn't changed. And I'm like, why is it not changing? That has been really play with my brain. And I like have to like either correct myself. I'm like, okay, it took 9 months for me to have her. Like, it's going to take me longer than 6 weeks for my body to go back. Cause you'll see people that are like instantly back. And I'm like, how are you instantly back? How? Because I definitely am.
Right. I know. Well, I have a huge issue with just the bounce back culture because it's like, once you get pregnant, you're celebrated and your body is celebrating. It's like, oh, it's the most beautiful, amazing thing. And then you have the baby and then there's this bounce back culture of like, oh, here's all these things that we market and pitch to new moms to get back in shape and do all this. And it's like, everybody's on a different time schedule. Like some people, might go back to their pre-baby weight. Some people might never end up back there because your body has completely changed. Your hormones have changed. Everything's changed. And you just have to give yourself so much grace and appreciate your body for what it's been through and just time. Like literally time has been the biggest thing for me because I remember even 3 months postpartum, I was Googling how long does it take to like lose your baby weight? And they're like, oh, usually around, I think it was 16 weeks or something. I don't know. People are back at their pre-baby weight. I was not. and it did really mess with me. But just giving myself time and grace and like not worrying about it, I even just feel so much better. And I wasn't ready to work out until like, I think I started working out a little after 3 months postpartum for like a week, and then I stopped. And then it wasn't until 6 months that I started working out 2-3 times a week and started feeling better. But also just feeling like I was finally organized in my life to where I'm like, okay, I can, I know kind of when she's sleeping. I know when I can get stuff done. I know where I can schedule work, and I know when I can, fit in a 20-minute workout or whatever. And that's like, I was surprised that it took me till 6 months. Cause you go on Instagram and you see this person like 6 weeks postpartum and has abs. And I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
Fake news right there.
Checking on my stomach, make sure I don't have the ab separation. But I did that too. At three days after she was born, my mom, myself, and my doula went on a walk around like where I live. And then that day and the next 2 days, my feet and my legs were so swollen. And my midwives were like, no. What are you doing? They're like, do not do that. And I was like, okay. And I didn't have any swelling like when I was pregnant. So I was like, okay. I'm like, I will just be. So like, I think that's probably my hardest thing too, is just to be okay with where I'm at right now. And it's all right. Like, I have this beautiful daughter.
Well, and you brought up another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about either, is grieving your old life. And that was really hard for me, because I think too, maybe it's different like when you're in your 30s and you have your first kid. Like, I'm in my mid 30s. And so I've just done whatever I wanted my entire life. And, now I'm 34, just had my first kid, and my entire life is completely changed. My responsibilities, just everything, like literally up to this point, I felt like I had no responsibilities besides myself, and I could do whatever I want, and even on a whim. And then my whole life changed, and it's hard balancing where baby fits into the picture.
Yeah, you're making me cry. It's hard for sure. I'm like used to how everything was. I'm 37. And I've always been a workaholic. And so I feel like even now, like I miss work so much. And not like I'm not grateful for her, because I am. But I feel like I'm not me and not like doing something. Kind of lazy. And my guy's like, no, you're doing like the best job and the biggest work you'll ever do in your entire life. Like, no. But I think that is definitely the hardest part for me, because I'm just like, I just feel lazy.
Right. Especially if you're a go person.
Yeah.
But you have to know you are not lazy.
I know. It's just hard.
Yeah.
And no one tells you it's hard. And I don't feel like people prepare you for that either. Like that whole, it's a 360 transition of like, okay, in one point you're this and doing all these things. And then one day that baby comes and then everything changes. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you plan on going back to work?
Yeah. Definitely, but it's just like we talk about all the time of like, okay, well, who would watch Violet then? And eventually, like, I'm gonna go back to California. And right now, where I'm at in Florida, like, I'm 2 miles down the street from my mom. So like, my mom comes over at least once a day, and so she could watch her. Like, she'll watch her when I go take a shower. Thank God. But like, when I go back to California and if I go back to work, like, I just don't know who would watch her. And like, who do you trust to watch them? Because I don't have any family out there. So that's my biggest like concern. And then you miss so many things. I'm like, oh, like she just cooed and smiled all day yesterday. I'm like, if I was working, then you miss all that. So I don't know. He's like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Yeah.
I feel like you're in the same dilemma that's a dilemma a lot of women have, especially when they are workaholics or they really love their jobs or they're like, I want to go back to work. And then you feel guilt on both sides. It's like, I want to go back to work and then I feel guilty leaving her, but then I feel guilty just sitting here with her all day. And like trying to find that balance is so freaking hard. Again, like you said, not something that they don't prepare you for.
Yeah. I don't know, and then now being like a mom, so weird to even say sometimes. I'm like, because it's so like surreal. I'm like, wait, I'm a mom. Do you ever catch yourself doing that? Even now or no?
No, I don't. It was actually really weird. I think before I had her, I couldn't really picture it at all. I couldn't picture myself being a mom. And I thought it would be super, super weird. But the day she was born, I said something about my daughter, and it just felt like so normal.
Aww.
Like, so normal. But there's times like my husband and I will look at each other and we're like, we have a kid. Like, what? We have a tiny human in our house.
Yes. 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 We say it all the time. Like, yeah. Yeah.
So how was your guys' like experience watching you birth, since he originally was like, go to the hospital, but then I'm sure his older kids were birthed, like you said, in the traditional setting. So kind of watching you birth your guys' daughter, what did he have to say about that? Yeah,
this was a eye-opening for him. So all of he has 3 grown kids, and they were all C-sections. So all C-sections planned on the time down to the date, like to the wire of when they're going to be born. This was a complete new experience from him, from out of hospital to just even birthing. So he didn't really know what to expect, honestly. Everyone always talks like your water going to break. So he was like thinking, okay, when the water breaks, then we get to go, So we had all of our bags packed here and all that stuff. But and he was helping during contractions throughout the middle of the night too, but just at one point we're like, go sleep for a little bit because we're going to need you. But now like looking back, he's just like, there's no way I could ever do that. I don't even know how you guys do that. He's like, I have a newfound and strong appreciation for you. Like, I knew you were a strong person, but like, wow. So that is pretty awesome and pretty amazing. And I think every day almost he's just like, I'm just so impressed by you. I like have no words because yeah. And he was so amazing too. Like I saw a whole new person out of him during that experience, and the way that he was there in me, and just to look at the photos, because I couldn't see it then, but like to go back now, I have all these photos that my mom was taking and videos, and just like he was there and just my rock basically that I needed. So yeah, it's amazing to see his way of thinking change from hospital versus that. He's so thankful that we did have her in Florida versus California, just because everything was open here compared to California was closed. So if something was to go wrong, like we had those options, but yeah, his eyes are open in a whole new way.
Yeah. I feel like no matter how you birth, just like watching people go through that, it's like, holy crap. Like, it's just such a wild experience.
Yeah. And now it's funny. He's just like, okay, you're at your 6-week mark. We're about to get cleared. I need to go and like check and evaluate, make sure everything is okay. Like, I saw how they were taking care of it, but now I want to check. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
I don't know if I want to look down there yet.
I know. And honestly, I'm just going to get really real here for a second. Everything went back to normal as far as feeling wise for him and for me. It does not look the same. to me anymore. There are things that have changed about my vagina, and it does not look the same as it used to. Everything feels the same and is normal that way. But there's definitely some changes that I'm like, oh, is this just what it's going to be for now on?
Yeah. Oh no, my doula told me, she's like, whatever you do, don't look at it.
Oh my gosh, don't.
Like after birth. So I definitely didn't. But then finally I looked at it. What was it? Like last week. And I was like, okay. But then I was like, what is that?
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah. I'm like, is that supposed to be that? You know, like sometimes you're Googling things. And I'm like, is this what, I think I'm Googling like six weeks postpartum vagina looks like or something. And I'm like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like. I go for my 6-week evaluation on Thursday. So I'm like, is this what it's supposed to?
Right.
I don't really know.
Right. Was that there before? I'm so confused.
Because I was like, I told him, I was like, I should have taken a picture of my vagina before I had the baby and then after, because I don't remember what it looked like before.
Right.
Like, listen, yeah.
I know. But I also feel like I never fully examined it, I guess, before maybe. So maybe like examining it after I saw some differences. But I mean, yeah, your body just changes and it's wild. And I mean, our bodies are made to do it. And I still cannot believe how strong you are.
Yeah.
You are amazing.
Did you do yours unmedicated?
No, I made it pretty far. Let's see, I was in labor for a really long time, and I felt like, so she was asynclinic, which meant she was kind of stuck and coming in sideways. So my contractions were all on the inside of my hips and the inside of my legs. So nothing was helping. The tub didn't help. The hip squeezes didn't help. Like all the normal things I do as a doula, like didn't really help me. And it was just like hours of that. And I think I requested the epidural when I was like 7 centimeters. And then the anesthesiologist was in a birth and I didn't get it till I was almost 9. So I was pretty far, but I was so exhausted. I was in so much pain. I was puking my brains out.
Oh no.
It was like horrible. We were in every position all over the room. We did everything for hours and hours. My doula, let's see, she had been there with me for 15 hours at that point, like just doing different positions, like changing everything, trying everything. And I ended up getting the epidural and I took an hour nap and then pushed her out. So,
man.
Yeah, the epidural was crazy though. I was thinking about it the other day because I feel like it hit me really, really hard. And I was like just exhausted after it. And I couldn't feel anything. Like you should be able to still have a little bit of movement. I had none. I was completely dead weight. Like, no, I didn't feel the pressure. Like, they're like, do you feel a little pressure? Like, even when I was pushing her out, they're like, do you feel a little pressure? I'm like, I feel nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. So it was a super strong epidural.
Man.
But yeah, I mean, for my next birth, I plan on going to a birthing center and doing unmedicated. So I'm going to try for it again and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the reasons too why I didn't want an epidural, because I had always heard like people not being able to feel their legs or their lower half, and I was just like, or like things going wrong with putting it in like the spine and stuff, and I'm like, nope. But I do remember at one point I asked, because that the midwives or birth centers, they have the nitrous, what's it called?
The laughing gas, basically.
Yeah. So I remember I asked for that and they were like, no, you're way past that. I was like, oh really? I was looking forward to it just to like have it. They're like, nope, you don't even need it anymore. You're good. And I was like, oh man, I was just disappointed in that part.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the birth balls for sure. My birth ball was I was like, yes, I hugged that thing so much.
Yeah. See, and I just don't remember like anything I did, nothing helped. Like There was nothing that I'm like, okay, like I found this rhythm. I found this position. Like every single position I felt like I was dying in. And I was just like trying not to like completely fall apart. Like nothing, like there was no new position that I got in. I'm like, okay, I feel a little relief, or this is a little better. I'm like, I feel like my legs are being ripped off my body and that I'm going to die.
No. Oh gosh.
So
yes, no, I'm thankful. I'm so thankful.
I know. And then I hear like birth experiences like yours and I'm like, oh, I'm so weak. I could have done it. And then I'm like, every single birth is different.
Weak. Yes.
And you know, like everybody feels things differently. Every single baby coming out is different. Like everybody's experience is so different and you can't compare at all.
No, at all.
Right. So it's, I mean, but I
always,
even
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say like, just even like listening to yours though, I'm like, oh, you're so incredible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I just was in this weird little time warp bubble. Cause even my sister-in-law, cause she has 2 and both of hers were epidurals. And she remembered telling my brother when she found out I was going to have it at a birth center, she's like, there is absolutely no way your sister is going to be able to birth with no medicine. No way. Cause she was just like, you know, hers was, I think the first time pushed for like 2 hours and was just like miserable and so much pain with an epidural.
Yeah.
But my nephew was like 10 pounds too. And so when I told her my story, she was just like, wait, what? I was like, I don't know. And I was just, I don't know. I'm grateful.
Yeah, for sure. Your body was made for it.
Yeah, the hip stuff, because that was totally helped for sure. Just as long as someone was on my back.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Those hip squeezes and lower back pressure, counter pressure is where it's at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Where can people find and follow you at?
On Instagram, I'm Leslie A. Hughes 25, or IMDb. You can see all like my acting stuff will be on there, and that's all Leslie A. Hughes as well. So
awesome. Well, I'm excited to. I'll have to DM you about your 6-week appointment. See how it goes. But just
because you were definitely there like in the beginning. I remember asking you so many questions, and you were definitely that was definitely a support that I needed in the beginning that I feel like we don't have a lot out there. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to follow along your motherhood journey and just to see little Violet grow up. She's so sweet. Oh, she's so cute.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Make sure that you go follow Leslie on Instagram. Her little girl is so cute. Oh my gosh. She's a little bit further along in her journey now. We recorded this podcast a while back, and she's sharing her motherhood journey and keeping it real. And she just started going back to work, and I know that can be hard sometimes. And I love following her and being a part of her community, her online community as well. So if you guys didn't listen last week, make sure that you go back and listen. We had Nicole Franzel and Victor Arroyo III on. Vito and I interviewed them. We kind of did a couples to couples interview. They're having a baby soon. She's due at the end of July. And it's nice just kind of chatting with her about her pregnancy, what her plans are, what her fears might be, what she's excited for, and the same with Victor. So make sure you go back and listen to that. Next week, we have on James Berry, who is the founder of Pluck. He shares a story with us, but he's a private chef and just got really passionate about health. We dive into organ meats and the factory farming industry and just kind of food. We go on a lot of random bunny trails when it comes to food and nutrition, but we want to hone in on the organ meats and how good those are for you, but yet society, people used to eat them like way back in the day. They used all of the animal and then they took those parts out, and now people don't really eat them anymore, but there's a lot of people trying to bring that back because that's actually the most nutrient dense parts of the animal, and also the parts that have the vital nutrients that you need for healthy pregnancy. So we dive into all of that content next week. This Sunday is Father's Day, guys. So I just want to say happy Father's Day. If there's any fathers listening, I know most people are moms to be on here, but happy Father's Day to any of the guys listening. I hope that you guys are enjoying the weekend festivities, taking it all in. This Father's Day is really exciting for us because Father's Day falls on Vito's 30th birthday. So it's his first official Father's Day and his 30th birthday all in one. So it'll be a lot of fun. I have all of my family in town, both my sisters, my brother, my parents, their spouses and kids. Not all the kids. Most of the kids will be here. But it's exciting to be able to all be together as a family. We haven't all been together as a family in over 2 years. So, just really excited to hang with the fam and just enjoy that good family time because we don't get it too often. If you don't know, I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before. So I have 3 siblings. We all live in different states. So we don't live close to each other. There's really no good way to get to where my brother lives. He either lives like a 14-hour drive away, or you have to fly and then drive a few hours to get to where he is. One of my sisters lives like 4 hours away, so it's not bad. So I get to see her like every couple of months. And then my other sister is outside of Dallas, so it's easy to get there, but she lives like an hour outside of Dallas. So, I mean, still a lot of flying, driving, or it's like a 15-hour drive. So my one sister's kind of close, which is very nice because we get to see them quite a bit, but everybody else is so spread out. And yeah, like I said, we haven't seen each other since our wedding, so almost 2.5 years. So it's really exciting. So if your family does live close, just enjoy it. Enjoy spending time with them. Enjoy hanging out and taking in those moments, because not being around family is hard. It's definitely hard. And I'm so thankful that we have Vito's family here. His like entire family is within 10 minutes of us, which is really, really nice. So I hope you guys are enjoying family this weekend. And again, happy Father's Day. And I'm excited for you guys to hear the rest of the podcast episodes coming out. I've been just like scheduling them like crazy. I have so many great episodes coming out. And if you didn't catch me on the Minimalist Mamas podcast, I know she came on my podcast. My podcast with her is now out on her podcast. So definitely go check that out. We dive into more doula stuff, healthcare. Vito and I also went on the Coco Caliente podcast, and that was a great episode where I talked more about doula stuff and birthing rights in healthcare. So if you're interested in that stuff, definitely go check out those episodes. And I should probably do one on here. I know I'm a doula and I don't talk about it tons on here because I'm usually just interviewing other people. But this last year, I've been learning a lot, and I've just gotten super passionate about birthing rights and your rights in healthcare, but specifically in birth. And so I'd love to do an episode on that to just kind of dive deeper into those topics. Because like I said, I am so passionate about it now. I just feel like I could talk for hours about it. Especially, I mean, all the stories that we've heard, like even just on here over the last few years of people who weren't listened to or valued in their experiences. And it just shouldn't be that way. So we'll have to do an episode on that one day. All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. And I will talk to you next week. Love you. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.